So a few things that people don't realize they're allowed to talk about in stand-up comedy are unique experiences to you, right? So if you've been to AA, you are more than welcome to write material on your experiences in AA. If you've been in an abusive relationship, you have every right to talk about that experience as in an abusive relationship. If you are the member of a race that is uncommon, you are absolutely allowed to talk about your experiences as a member of that race, right? Because what a lot of people say to me when they first get started in comedy, when they first join my class, is they're afraid of offending people. They're afraid of talking about something they're not allowed to talk about, right? And if you have experienced it, you can talk about it. It doesn't matter if Karen in the audience doesn't like what you went through or thinks that, like, oh, well, that's not what I heard, right? That's not what I heard about those kind of people. That's not what I heard about those religions. Sorry, your experience is your material, right? Whether or not people like the outcome. For example, I had a friend who did a set on no longer being Mormon. He grew up Mormon and then he excommunicated from the church, and he did an entire set about what it's like to be an excommunicated Mormon. So don't worry about your experiences offending people. Don't worry about people not wanting to hear about what it is you have to say. For example, maybe you have bipolar disorder. Maybe you have a drug addiction. Maybe you have something else. And you think to yourself, nobody wants to hear about that. The likelihood that somebody in the audience has the same problem and also thinks nobody wants to hear about that is really high, right? If you have bipolar and you don't think you should do jokes about it because it's a downer and nobody wants to hear about it, somebody in the audience who has bipolar also thinks nobody wants to hear about it because it's a downer. When in reality, that can be your teaching moment, right? You can teach people what it's like to go through AA. You can teach people what it's like to have bipolar. You can teach people what it's like to be excommunicated from a church. But also, material doesn't have to be nearly that dramatic. It can be, I bullied somebody in high school. It can be, I was bullied in high school. It can be, this is a thing that happened to me while I was walking my dog, right? Like, you don't have to cut so deep that you're like drawing out your deepest traumas or anything like that. But you're more than welcome to draw out your deepest traumas all you want, right? If that's sometimes you just run out of content and you're like, oh, I know, I'll talk about literally the worst day of my life, right? And then you find out a lot of people had a very similar worst day of their life. For example, I am never going to write a set about what it's like to be Latina because I have no idea, right? I don't know. But if somebody doesn't like my set on what it's like to grow up Southern Baptist, that's their problem. You see what I'm saying? You have so many different unique perspectives that you don't even realize are unique to you until you start doing some of the brainstorming exercises that we're going to work on.